All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly developer sync for Subspace. We're going to be experimenting with a new format today. So we're going to go through the different engineering teams that we have right now, protocol, execution layer, product, and then R&D. So to start off, Nizar, if you could give us an overview of what's happened on the core protocol side, please.
Sure. So last week, we were kind of slowly preparing to the next phases of Gemini after Gemini 1B. So one of the changes implemented on my side was to allow specifying root farmer in the Genesis chain spec instead of deriving that from the first block. So we don't have any chance to have forks on the first block. And then there were also additional checks for the fast sync in case we decide to use it. It actually checks basically everything we can check from the header. And then there were some build fixes that some of the users noticed on ER64 and some other cases. And today there was one pull request that dropped compatibility with Gemini 1B. It is not merged yet, but it basically removes all of the old stuff that we no longer need and changes some of the parameters. For instance, max float size will be in bytes everywhere instead of in some places in bytes and some in pieces. And also there was a pull request finally for some of the optimizations of geosensing that helped. That Ivan helped me to test with some of the changes, but there is still more work to be done there. And this week we'll be launching some early pre-Gemini testnet just to see how it works. Yeah, those are my updates.
Thanks, Nizar. Any questions about any of that? Okay. Ivan, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So last week, basically, I helped Nazar to ramp up with the help in terms of like DSN sync and setting up that. So during that, we discussed that it would be helpful to actually merge some of the like hacky fixes which I had for the DSN sync. And we basically merged them during the last week. They basically like disabled, basically reverted some of the one pull request from Shamil related to the filtering relay node. And they also and I also introduced like retrying for like getting closest peers so that we could be more accurate in terms of like network congestions and something like that. Apart from that, I was actually working on actualizing the farmers plots, like resuming the DSN sync basically. So I basically read about the like different filters, that kind of stuff, and decided to go on like basically with one cuckoo filter like per plot basis. So basically, like I calculated for like 100 gigabytes, it will be something like 32 megabytes of space used in RAM. If you would calculate that to in terms of like, for example, 30 terabytes, that would be like something around like gigabyte. So that kind of hurts, but but still like it's not that bad, I guess. So and like I already tested like library and like doing a small PR with that. So basically the false positive rate is around like 3% for this exact library and this exact memory settings. Also, I already identified that like if we want to preserve like current like request response protocol for like getting pieces by range, like right now we're getting both pieces and indexes.
We could probably push the more detailed updates into the protocol sync on the next call. If you can just give a high level and what you're going to be working on this week, that'd be better.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So basically, started doing a PR with that and splitting the like some of the networking protocols into two parts. That's it on my end.
I have just a small comment about that. Can we sync up about that? Because there are some changes coming, and I just don't want us to waste effort on something that will be thrown away, and we can maybe focus on some of the things that will be preserved.
Sure thing, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Ivan? All right. Thank you, Ivan. Shamil, you want to go next, please?
Okay. Last week, I fixed the last changes to the peer info protocol and worked mostly on the Bootstrap node application. I added reserved peers, connection limits to the networking rate, and added the Bootstrap node application to our CI workflow. My plan for this week is to implement object mapping provider on the farmer side and to continue with the more advanced sync version. That's it.
Great. Thanks, Shamil. Looking forward to a more detailed update on the next call. Any questions from the group? All right. Okay, so let's transition into the execution layer and the domains design. I'll give a quick overview, and we can let the rest of the team go. So the main focus for last week was fleshing out a formal specification for namespace execution, which is kind of the thing that sits below domains, the notion of having multiple execution environments instead of one, like we had before with decoupled execution. So I had put together a draft of that and shared it with Lu Cheng and with Ved and gotten some feedback on that. So I've been revising that over the weekend. It's not really in a state that's accurate right now. There's going to be some changes to it. But we do have basically a start of a formal spec, kind of like what we have for consensus right now, which is something that we've needed for quite a long time for the execution layer. So we're getting there. I think maybe in a week, we might have like a rough draft of the full spec. That's going to be one of my big priorities this week, is to finish that specification. And so that's in our notion under the execution layer. It's in there. And then just working with the team on the palette design docs. So we have been working to try to actually kind of architect or build like the blueprints, like the high level blueprints for the entire domain system, the primary chain, the secondary chain, and some of the core domains. We're about 2/3 of the way done with that. So we've got the primary chain palettes designed. We've got most of the secondary chain palettes designed, or at least a first draft of those. And this week, we're going to be working on a couple of the minimal core domains, which would be like a payments domain, a rewards domain, and a storage domain. And then at that point, hopefully, we will be ready to go back, do one more pass, and start writing some code on that after we have got some feedback and buy-in from the rest of the team. Any questions for me? Okay, Lu Cheng, you want to go next?
Sure. So last week, I was primarily working on the design doc of palette executor registry and palette domain registry, review the spec of namespace execution, had a few discussions with Jeremiah. The palette executor registry is basically has been done and reviewed by Jeremiah. Might still needs some takes once the namespace execution spec is updated though. The palette domain registry is still a work in progress. The goal for this week will be finishing the palette domain registry and the design doc of the rewards domain. Yeah, that's my update.
Thanks, Lu Cheng. Any questions? Okay, Ved, do you want to go next?
Yep. Hey everyone. Last week, mostly focused on the unified messaging, and then post that I did the initial draft of palette transporter that sits on the secondary chain or the system domain, so that anyone can exit from core domains at any point in time. And then I started working on the palette messenger design draft. That's not completely done yet, but hopefully in a day, I think that should be done. And this week I have a call with Jeremiah. Hopefully we'll revise or we'll go through the transporter as well as a messenger design drafts with him and see if there is any feedback from there. and then pick up the core payments domain once the pallet messenger is done. And that's a plan for this week.
All right, thanks, Fed. Any questions? Okay, so we can move on to the product section. Arthur is not here today. I did actually get a chance to meet up with Arthur in person on Friday for the first time. We spent the afternoon working together, which was great. We had a really good product roadmap discussion. So I can give kind of a high-level overview of that to start out before we go into the updates. Basically, we have decided that we are still going to be focused on some of just the really, really core fundamental pieces of the user experience, which is really just the wallet, the block explorer, and actually the CLI. Those are the areas where we really need to get to like a version 1 of like something that's more useful. So that means stronger partnership with Subwallet. We're going to be getting kind of revamping our documentation to make that the default wallet for Subspace. We are working with, we're hoping to have a kickoff call with Subscan in the next, hopefully this week, to get started on the Block Explorer development. And that should turn around pretty quickly, within 2 weeks, actually. We should have a first version of that. And then we've also been having some discussions about what we're calling a wrapper CLI around the existing CLI, which would be like a meta CLI, which just, like Subspace Farm, Subspace Plot, Subspace Sync, that kind of simplifies the node operator experience and not have to run like a farmer and a client and some other stuff. So this is some stuff we've been kicking around for a while, like these ideas, but we're actually going to try to focus on implementing some of them in the near term. And we'll be having some design discussions with Nizar and Wei and some other people on the team to kind of design the API or the UX for that before we start implementing it. And the other piece is going to be telemetry, which is the we've got some changes we need to do to telemetry for some upcoming milestones we have as well. So yeah, any questions about that?
What nodes should have these telemetry features? For example, we have this new Bootstrap node application. Do we need to add something to that?
That's primarily about Substrate node. It already has telemetry built in.
Yeah, sorry, to be more specific, Shamil, we're going to be working on the front end for the telemetry, like a better dashboard that can scale. Right now, it scales up to about 25,000 users. We want it to scale to like 100,000 plus and not crash. So it seems to be more of a front end design challenge than anything.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Oscar. Yeah.
So the new CLI wrapper should be act like Subspace desktop, but without the GUI. Like it will wrap Farmer and Node together and into a single CLI, right?
Yeah, maybe even simpler than Subspace desktop, actually. Even more high level, but that's a good way to think about it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Serge, do you want to go next, please?
Sure. So as usual, I was working on Subspace desktop. So there was a PR submitted with second iteration of Tauri updater feature. This includes periodic updates. Currently, we have daily checks for the new updates. Previously, we had only one check when the user started the application. So now every time there is update, we will show this pop-up. And also it includes the menu item to install update if user rejected the pop-up when it showed for the first time. So PR was submitted and approved, but since currently CI is blocked, it's not yet merged. So it will be merged when it's possible. Apart from that, I was working on the subscription for sync state. And currently I'm struggling with testing the feature because like syncing is almost instant if I have local testnet, and syncing on Gemini 1 is problematic, as we discussed before. So if we have like a dedicated testnet, as we discussed last week, that would be very helpful. And apart from that, I was working on setting up end-to-end tests. It's still in progress because Mac OS is not supported, so I have to run it in CI, and that's not very efficient. So maybe I will ask someone with another operating system to help me. And apart from that, I had discussion with Arthur on the integration with browser extension Wallet. And I did some research on that. There are a few plugins for Tauri that might be helpful. So my plan is to build like a proof of concept application when I have time. Yeah, I believe that's all.
I have a tricky question. Is that updater feature enabled unconditionally? In other words, if you install it with the package manager on Linux, will it still try to update itself, even though it will not have access to files? Or is it disabled in that case?
I'm not sure. Maybe we can test it with someone who has Linux.
Okay. Maybe it's handled like by default in that behavior, but just something came to my mind.
Okay, thank you, Serge. Just a couple comments. The pre-stress test testnet that Nazar is going to be launching early this week, that should fulfill the need of a testnet for the desktop. It should be a small network that should be easy to sync. And then on the browser extension, based on some of the discussions Arthur and I had, that's probably going to get deprioritized a little bit. So don't do any additional work on that until you have a chance to sync up with Arthur. Okay.
Okay.
But it's good to note that we have that option. It's still on the roadmap. It's just not immediate priority right now. Okay. Any other questions, comments for Serge? Okay, Özkan.
Hello. So this week's changes are I reintroduced the rotating logs feature. There is one more thing to be tested on my site. Then tomorrow I will submit the PR for it. And today Serge mentioned that there is some minor bug for the farmer and node communication after he did upgrade the dependencies. So we updated the dependencies one more time and the bug is resolved. Apart from that, we had to finish some inline documentations on the Rust side. I did it. And there is some, I believe, confusion about the error handling, about the messy farmer start function on the front end. So I made some big comments about that in the related issue. For this week, again, as I said, I will do one more testing with rotating logs. I believe it should be finished in a couple of hours tomorrow. After that, if the pre-testnet is ready, I can test the syncing part and the normal syncing part apart from what Serge mentioned, because we had a lot of changes in the Subspace desktop. We tested nearly all of them, but we couldn't test the syncing part fully. So that's, I believe, priority on our testing side. Apart from that, I don't have anything planned for the next week, and I believe I will be free for 1 or 2 days. If you need any help, Serge, I can be helpful, gladly.
Okay, thanks, Özkan. I think we'll probably have a deeper discussion about that tomorrow on the app sync. But it's good to know. I think we've got some new work coming down the pipeline for you that will keep you occupied. Okay, Justin, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I've been on the Subspace desktop side, working with the fun centralized services of getting code citing certificates renewed. Finally got that going at the beginning of this week, so we should be able to unblock Subspace desktop CI. On the documentation side, just getting some updates going with the new workflow, with the new process that we'll be doing for the new Gemini coming up. And beyond that, my largest focus has been on localization, just getting more languages added to our main website, and hopefully here shortly to our documentation as well.
Great, thank you, Justin. Any questions? All right. Okay, switching gears one more time, we're going to talk about research and development. So just at a high level, with the consensus upgrades that we have been exploring, we had done a deep look into some of the work that the Filecoin team did. We were looking at re-implementing some of their primitives. And there were some issues that came up with that, so that doesn't look like that's going to work, or at least not as cleanly as we'd hoped. So we are looking into the primitives that Chia is using, and that is kind of the next steps there to evaluate that a little bit more closely. And I've shared some documents. Actually, I guess I didn't share them, but there are some documents in the research side that are public that you guys should be able to see if you guys want to look into what we're doing. There's some new optimizations that we're exploring. And we also had a discussion with David to try to do a more formalized security analysis, or like a more abstract security model, which was pretty fruitful, and kind of have a model now to think about the upgrades to the protocol that we're doing. Any questions about that? Okay. Daria, you want to go next?
Yeah, so last week I was mostly reviewing the Filecoin implementations of their proof of replication, proof of space, and trying to see which of the things of their consensus may be adaptable to what we are trying to build here, in terms of like we want to have slow encoding on pieces, but then fast retrieval. We want to prevent compression attacks, want to prevent block grinding attacks. So we're reviewing the Filecoin with regard to those things. And this week I would be finishing a little bit of that up and trying to evaluate the Chia algorithms that they are using for their proof of space. And I guess then we'll see with Jeremiah, maybe we can mix and match, or which one we want to try to adopt.
Are those algorithms within their white papers, or there are some additional documents?
Well, there are white papers, there are also specs, there is implementation, and well, as we know, some of those things may diverge from one another. So I'm trying to bring them into, well, our notion and do a write-up exactly from our perspective about those algorithms.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
muted, Jeremiah.
Any other questions before I close out? All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you soon on our protocol sync.
Thanks, everybody.